Hello, welcome to Pride of South London Fan TV. Ali here bringing you a new video, and this video is called Raiding Watford. I'm going to be looking at players we have been linked with from Watford's relegated squad, evaluating our chances of getting them and analysing their potential impact on our team. It does seem a little bit like we are a hyena preying on a mutilated creature, and that mutilated creature is a poor, deluded, desperate hornet. But I do think Watford need to be realistic in the sense that they will need to sell some players to make up for the lost revenue of being relegated from the Premiership to the Championship. And of course, there will be players in their squad desperate to jump straight back from the Championship to the Premier League. Who knew that a team whose main tactic seemed to be to systematically foul one player, as Troy Deeney once said, would go down? Anyway, let's look at the first player. And that first player that we've been linked with is Sarr, a player who is fast, direct and skillful, and like many fans I think would be a natural replacement for Wilfried Zaha. It was interesting, however, to look at the stats, and looking at Sarr's stats, I have to say I was actually a little bit underwhelmed, if anything. If you would go by certain sections of the media or certain fan bases, you would think that Sarr has been a world beater this season and Wilfried Zaha has been a flop based on the stats. But actually, Sarr has scored 5 goals this season, not much more than Wilfried Zaha. And actually, the most goals he scored in a season for any team is 8 in the French league. Now, Wilfried Zaha obviously scored double figures, got to double figures in the season before the last one just gone. So it does put things into context a little bit, but I'm not using those stats to discredit Sarr. It annoys me when people use stats about Wilfried Zaha out of context, because as I've said, I do think Sarr is a real quality player and one we would be pretty lucky to get to Palace. I think the biggest problem will be for us is that Liverpool have been heavily linked. But I guess the only thing that we would have to trump Liverpool would be we could guarantee him first team football. I can't see Sarr going in and dislodging Salah and Mane right away unless one of them is going. So there is that for us. But I think the biggest issue for us is there doesn't seem to be anybody concrete in for Wilfried Zaha at the moment. As far as we can see, there's no big story coming out just yet. And I think that would delay us going in for Sarr, and we can't really afford a delay with Liverpool sniffing around. So a player I'd very much like at Selhurst Park, but I am not that confident of getting. Next player that I'm going to look at is Gerard Deulofeu. Now, Gerard Deulofeu is a real quality player, a magician. I love this player. I love him to come to Palace. He's the sort of player I think we've really been missing, an incisive, imaginative player with a real eye for a pass. And I think he's actually the sort of player that Zaha has actually really missed. I don't think we've had a player who can thread a ball to Zaha in the way that Yohan Cabaye used to. And it seems to me that the only player Zaha really buzzes off is Patrick Van Aanholt, who's a left back, and obviously Jordan Ayew as well. But Zaha might not even be here if we did get Gerard Deulofeu. But I do think he's a player who would really improve us. I can't see us getting him if we also got Ryan Fraser. But I also am quite sceptical of our chances of getting him, mainly because they put a price tag of 15 million. And the only real negative for me on Gerard Deulofeu is he did have an ACL injury not that long ago. So I can't see us shelling out 15 million. There has been talk of a loan deal, but I'd question why Watford would want to do a loan deal. If they were going to loan him to anyone, it would surely be Udinese. And I really don't think they would get much out of that financially. So they'd probably be better keeping him in their team and using him to fire them back to the Premier League. So in conclusion, on Gerard Deulofeu, a player I would love at Selhurst Park, but again, I'm not too sure he will be coming. Last player I'm going to look at that we've been linked with is Danny Welbeck. Now, Palace fans on social media, not too keen on this one, but he is a player I know Roy Hodgson rates, because Roy Hodgson used him a lot in the qualification for the European Championships, in which we ended up losing, of course, in the main tournament to Iceland. He was a real integral part of Roy's team in the lead up, in the qualification to that tournament, but obviously was then injured for the actual tournament. The biggest strength of Welbeck for me is his ability to move from the centre to the wide positions. He's also good in a high press. He's very good at winning the ball back in high areas of the pitch. The only real negative, well, there's two big negatives for Danny Welbeck. One, the obvious one, is his injury record. And the second one is really there's a lack of goals through his career. The most goals he scored in the Premier League season is 9 goals, and that was for Manchester United in 2011-2012 season. And we've obviously had a striker for a few years in Benteke who's been struggling for goals. We're in desperate need of a goal scorer, and Danny Welbeck wouldn't solve that problem. I would say, though, if we could get him for a nominal fee and a pay-as-you-play deal, obviously with his injury record, I think it might be one worth having a go at, as long as we got a goal scorer on top. And the other thing I would say on that, actually, is Palace fans were very sceptical about Gary Cahill, and then he ended up being one of our best players of the season. So I don't think Welbeck's an answer to a goal-scoring problem, but he could be an interesting addition to the team. And actually, to be honest, looking at the 3 players, he'd probably be the one I'd be more confident of ending up at Selhurst Park, which would be ironic, really, with all the excitement of those players. They would be Welbeck. It'd be typical Palace, wouldn't it, if we ended up with Danny Welbeck out of those 3. Last player I want to just mention, he's not been linked with us, but a player who I quite rate, and I mentioned on Delafouille how we miss a player with an incisive pass. I really quite rate Will Hughes. He's got a great left foot, and I think he could be the sort of player that would improve the creativity of our midfield. So I'd quite like us to see us go in for him, but he's not been a player that we've been linked with just yet. The last thing I would say on this is it's quite interesting, isn't it? When you're looking at Watford's players, it's all midfielders and attackers that we seem to want, and you'd seem to want to come to Palace, not really their defence, and that might be where the problem lay for them last season. Also, I think there's an interesting symmetry between Javier Garcia and Alan Pardew in that they both got their teams to a cup final and then very quickly lost their jobs. I'm not saying that was the main reason Pardew lost his job. There were lots of other issues there, but it is interesting, and Javier Garcia now, of course, ending up at Valencia. Anyway, I've had a look at those players that we've been linked with. What do you think? Which players from Watford squad would you like us to end up with? Are there any you think that could improve us? I've come out and said that I think Will Hughes would be a good addition. Is there anyone that's not been mentioned in this video? As always, leave your thoughts and comments below, and if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe.